It's the third game week since the Bundesliga resumed. We've already had the Riviera Derby, we've had the Berlin Derby, which were two great games, but now it's time for the Klassiker. Bayern Munich, top of the league, on 80 goals scored, 61 points, and just a mere 4 behind them are Dortmund, looking to gain ground on them. Both teams have had good starts to the restart of the Bundesliga, and today we're going to talk about that game. Joined with me, we're the Fourmation podcast, but today, obviously, I'm Devin Cash. I'm joined by George, Harry.
Hi, guys.
And Sam, as well
Guten
as
Tag.
Bundesliga correspondent Josh Goodman. Josh, welcome
Hello.
to the Fourmation.
Thank you very much.
How are you?
Welcome, Josh.
I'm
Good to
wonderful.
have
It's
you.
an honour to be here, boys. Very excited.
I should say we're
Before-
making history here. The first ever guest
Yes. Yes.
in the history books.
Well, sure to be on my CV. So,
So, Josh, before we get into the Klassiker, tell us a little bit about yourself.
so I'm a fellow student at University of Derby. I'm a Torquay United fan. I've adopted Hertha Berlin in recent years in the Bundesliga. Bundesliga is by far my favourite league in the world, and I'm just really excited that the whole world's watching.
Great. So let's jump straight into it. This weekend brought up some more good results. Leipzig got back on form after dropping points last week, but obviously we're going to stick with Dortmund and Munich. Let's start with the home side, Dortmund. They beat Wolfsburg 2-0. You know, to me, they seem to struggle a little bit to get a rhythm. I think that would be because of Wolfsburg's, timid defending. George, what did you make of the game?
Well, looking back on it, I think it relates to something which is often said in England when teams are going for the title and they don't play as well, but they still get the result. And I think this was exactly what Dortmund managed to do. They had to work pretty hard for it, didn't they? I think the Sancho introduction was quite important. He got another assist. I think that's 16 for the season for him now, which is a Dortmund record. So maybe he'll step in on Tuesday night, but who knows? But yeah, I think a pretty impressive win in the circumstances.
Sam, you watched Schalke on Sunday that have obviously had a knock-on effect from losing to Dortmund. Just how powerful are Dortmund's, counter-attacking style?
Yeah, they're extremely prolific on the counter-attack, like George mentioned. It's obviously spearheaded by Sancho. He's not started yet since we've come back from the restart, but my question to you guys would be, will he start in the Klassiker?
Well, I throw it to Harry straight away.
Well, he's got to. It's probably, one of their biggest games of the season. They've got to keep pace with Bayern and make up that ground. Like George said, the last game, fully professional, 2-0 win. You don't have to be very impressive at every single game you play. As long as you get the 3 points, that's all the table shows at the end of the day. Another clean sheet as well. And then just keeping that form going. And maybe they'll catch up with Bayern. You never know. There's not too many games left of the season, but they're doing everything in their power to do so.
Who would he
And
replace?
finally, no, sorry, go on.
I was just going to follow up with who would you replace him with in the starting lineup if he was to start against Bayern?
That's a difficult one because they are in really good form, but I just think he's got so many goal contributions, assist contributions throughout the entire season. He's sort of a player that if he's fully fit, no matter what, you've got to put him in. I'm not sure who you take out because that attacking lineup is so far. If you take someone out, maybe that might disrupt the rhythm that they've gained in the past 9 days. So that might be why they might not. But you've got you've got to try and put him in somewhere because he is that influential for that side.
Let's bring Josh in just to kind of summarise Dortmund's past game. Josh, what positives can Dortmund take out of that resolute performance?
Well, I mean, as we've touched on, they're brutal on the counter-attack. I mean, 2-0, they got the job done. That's all they had to do to keep in touch with Bayern, because Bayern don't look like they'll be stumbling anytime soon, which obviously means this game tomorrow is so much more, means so much more. 2-0, both goals by fullbacks, not sort of attacking prowess they're known for or were after, but they got it done with a weakened team. Royce injured and Witsel out. They have a depleted side, but they're still getting big results at the moment.
Can I ask as well, Josh? Bayern have obviously won the last 7 titles in a row. Where have Dortmund not managed to match them in those previous seasons? And do you think this year they are getting closer and have a chance of eventually pipping them? Obviously, the season's still got a few games left, but it's still in the balance, isn't it?
Yeah, well, recent years until really Haaland, obviously he's a recent explosion on the scene. Sancho, before that, they only had really one stand-up player in Marco Reus, which compare that to Bayern's, you've got, 11 or at least 8 well-known, world-class superstars. Whereas Dortmund, they still obviously were battering everyone and getting close, but they never had that wow factor to really plunder on for a title, which I believe they can do this year. I believe they have the lineup. Everyone at the moment is in form. Brandt is showing himself to be a superb player, and I really think that this could be their year.
I think.
Go on.
I was just saying to Josh, if they don't get it this season, are they going to be like the Monaco or the Ajax that because they didn't get what they were looking for, maybe Ajax in the Champions League, Monaco in the Champions League, but obviously in the league, if they don't win it this season, do you think their main players like the Jaden Sanchos will leave, or do you think they'll say, do you know what, we've got a project here, let's try and win it, if we don't this season, next season?
Yeah, I don't think Sancho's going to be going anywhere anytime soon. There's obviously all these links and rumours thrown around about various Premier League sides, but I think it's too soon, and he's too integral to what Dortmund have. And what they have is a strong young team, which they can build up from what it is now, which is already a very good side, into potential world beaters, really.
So good as do you think because Dortmund have got kind of a connotation with being a side that gets cherry picked quite a lot, until they knock off that stigma, do you think Dortmund will always be in Bayern's shadow?
I don't think they will, and I think they're already starting to knock off those connotations. They've been pretty resolute with Sancho. They're determined to keep hold of him, and they are starting to, as I touched on, they are starting to build a real good team, and I don't think they'd let them go that easily, even for large sums of money, because a talent like Sancho can be the difference between them winning the league and being second place for an 8th time.
You have to admit, though, that one of their biggest problems in recent years has actually been losing their best players to Bayern. Obviously, you had Lewandowski, Mario Götze, Mats Hummels, who obviously came back, but they've lost a lot of their players to Bayern because obviously they're a financial powerhouse compared to Dortmund.
Yeah. Well, they've been struggling for a while to get a replacement for Lewandowski, and I do think that Haaland fills his boots pretty well.
Pretty well, yeah.
You've got Lewandowski who's the top scorer in the league, but Haaland, having come in January, he's tearing it up, and he's such a joy to watch. Fantastic young player, and at his age, he's got just so much potential to really maybe even become better than Lewandowski was for Dortmund, even though obviously he was a fantastic player. As for Götze and Hummels, they both came back. Götze may not have been great when he's come back, and he's been bench warming since he's out of contract in the summer. But he wasn't really anything special at Bayern anyway. So they've got such a strong team, a really, really dense lineup. So I think that the ex-players could come back to bite Dortmund, but chances are Dortmund can overcome Lewandowski's attack.
We'll certainly see. Let's move on to Bayern Munich this weekend. An emphatic 5-2 win over Frankfurt. They did kind of get quite lackadaisical from corners where, Hinteregger scored a brace. However, as Bayern always are, they were just relentless up front and continued to, pickaxe their way through that Frankfurt defence. What Do you think Munich will be too strong on the back of this performance, George?
I don't see them as being too strong, though. I think the fact that they had a bit of a lapse in concentration against Frankfurt, I don't think they'll be able to afford to do that against Dortmund, because they're coming up against a much tougher defence. Since the restart, Dortmund haven't conceded a goal. So if you ship 2 goals, I think one was the 52nd minute, one was the 55th. So 2 goals in quick succession, Dortmund are just going to lap that up. So Bayern are going to have to be much more on it. We know how strong they are going forward, but I think that might worry them slightly for sure, especially given Dortmund's firepower.
Harry?
Yeah, I was going to say the same as George, really, that if they give a yard of space to Haaland in the box, probably the most potent striker, bar Lewandowski, in the world at the moment, if Frankfurt can score 2, Dortmund can score more. And I'm not saying that they're going to give the same amount of space to Dortmund, because obviously that'd be ridiculous. But, I think Dortmund have got a real chance here to make a statement more than anything else. That we've seen Bayern's defence is solid, but they've, they can. We've seen today or a few days ago that they can concede goals, and that will really give Dortmund a lot of confidence that if they can get, like George said, a quick 2 goals, they can sit on that lead and try and defend it, and then that forces Bayern to come and attack them, which gives them more chance to counter. So it's vital that Dortmund, if they want to have a real chance of getting back in this league season, to get the first goal.
It's the obvious thing to say, but I just can't look past Robert Lewandowski. I mean, he's just so prolific. I mean, you say Haaland's the best striker bar Lewandowski, so I think that proves my point in the sense that he's so prolific against Dortmund. Even he's got 18 in 19 games against them, 27 goals this season in the league, leading the way once again. And it's like his 4th or 5th consecutive season scoring more than 30 goals in all competitions. So like there's no better striker in the world, I think, at the moment than Lewandowski.
Josh, what's your synopsis of Bayern?
Sorry?
What's your synopsis of Bayern's previous result against Frankfurt?
Well, as we've already touched on, they went 3-0 up soon after the restart of the second half, and they just turned off for 10-15 minutes, and that just allowed Frankfurt to pile on the pressure, which, no disrespect to Frankfurt, they did a good job getting 2 back. Give that much time and space to Dortmund, it's going to be just not what they want at all. Dortmund will be relentless if given that much room to just pry on goal. Bayern need to keep tight for the whole 90 minutes. They can't afford a lapse in concentration. I do think that Bayern, they know what they're about more now, other than obviously the 15 minutes of a bit of a lapse in concentration against Frankfurt. They're on the ball often, literally, and they know how to work it. They know how they play. They know to get it to Lewandowski, and they know he will score, because from wherever he will get the ball, he will find a way to put it in the net. And I don't think Kovac had that ingrained in them enough. They seemed lost. Obviously, they still continue to win games in the league, but they just didn't seem quite as organised as they do now.
We should probably mention as well 4-0 to Bayern in the reverse fixture before Christmas. How much incentive will Dortmund have to right that wrong? And obviously we know how much the incentive is because of the title race, but it's putting that result right as well, isn't it? Yeah,
well, that's going to be bitter in the minds of the Dortmund players. And with Haaland coming in January, Bayern have never faced him. He's a new evil for them to tackle. And so you're talking about Dortmund. They're obviously at home this time around. So that's Signal Iduna Park. They're the best home side in the league. They are unbeaten this season in the league at home. 10 wins, 3 draws. They've scored 16 unanswered goals at home as well. But you compare that to Bayern, who are the best away team in the league, and it's just going to be a brilliant clash. I can't wait.
It's interesting you mention the home advantage. In the 18 Bundesliga games so far, 3 home teams out of 18 have won.
Yes.
So I know you mentioned it's still familiar surroundings, but they will certainly miss that crowd, weren't they? Although they didn't against
Yes.
Chelsea, you could say, I suppose.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's never been clear just how much fans and an atmosphere help a team until now. A situation like this, and Dortmund, obviously the famous yellow wall, that will add incredible amounts of support. But I do think that even just being at home, they look so rooted against Schalke that I just think a repeat of that and they'll be fine. They'll be winning and taking 3 points.
So looking at, we mentioned their home form and the absence of the yellow wall, which will be damaging. You know, they've only lost one of the previous 4 meetings against Bayern on home soil. Included in that is their win over Bayern, the 2-0 win in the DFL Super Cup, where they absorbed a lot of pressure from Bayern and did come away with that trophy, wasn't it? Let's move more into the lineups. Here I've got the predicted lineups. Just there's one slight change to what we were saying earlier. So you look at that Dortmund team, and it's the Lucien Favre's 4-3-3, yeah. That has been dominating recently. You've got Berke, Piszczek, Hummels, Akanji, Hakimi, Delaney, Dahoud, Guerrero, Hazard, Brandt, and then up front Haaland. What there's the possible inclusion of possibly returning Emir Can that could replace either Delaney or Dahoud, and obviously the big talking point is whether Sancho will return. George, what do you make to that lineup?
I think Guerrero has. I mentioned him on the episode 4 of the podcast, but he proved it again on the weekend how important his influence is from the wing. As we mentioned, the Sancho one is difficult whether they play him or not, but I think maybe they gamble and go for it because we saw how good he was off the bench.
Do you think with Brandt really making the place of Marco Reus his own, do you think he deserves a shot against Bayern? Gooders?
I mean, Royce is still injured and doesn't look like he'll be coming back particularly soon. If Royce was fit, I don't think Brandt would be starting. Royce being a club legend, he's got so much to his game. But as you say, Brandt is in form. He is doing very good.
I think if we do see Sancho slide back into that starting 11, I think we could still see Thorgan Hazard and Julian Brandt still start. I mean, you could slide Julian Brandt into that central midfield and either take out Dahoud or Emre Can, or you could have Sancho, Brandt, Haaland, the front three, Dahoud, Can in central midfield. So they're quite flexible there, and the performances of Brandt and Thorgan Hazard since the resumption have been very good. So I think they definitely deserve a shout to be in the starting 11 against Bayern.
Right, okay, then we'll move on to Bayern's team. Neuer in net, Pavard, Boateng, Alaba and Davies. Central midfield's very strong. I'd say much stronger than Dortmund's two of Kimmich and Goretzka, meaning that Koeman, Muller and possibly Gnabry or Perisic on that left will, provide that behind creativity for Lewandowski, as we mentioned. Very prolific against his old club. 9 goals in his last 4, the Klassiker. But as Sam alluded to, it's much greater than that. The most interesting fight will be that the front battle between Haaland and Lewandowski. Haaland has a goal every 69 minutes and Lewandowski only 82. I'm saying only 82.
Only
like
82.
It's not
Only.
impressive enough.
Not doing enough then, is he?
As we've mentioned, Lewandowski seemingly the favourite to come out on top.
Yeah, I think I'm concerned about mentioning Lewandowski too much because there are obviously other players on this Bayern team that can cause a lot of problems for Dortmund. I think we'll probably see Serge Gnabry return to the starting 11. I wasn't too impressed with Ivan Perisic against Frankfurt. He was quite quiet, but yeah, there's a lot of other players on this Bayern team that can cause some problems. Has anyone got any others that they could throw in the hat?
I like Goretzka. The goal he scored at the weekend was very satisfying, wasn't it, when he just stepped onto it? And
Yeah.
I think he's quite a good option from the middle, like you said, Devon. I think that'll be a pretty key battle as well, as it always is. But yeah, I quite like him.
I think sorry, go on.
I was going to say I'm a big fan of Alphonso Davies. You can tell he was a left winger or plays more further forward for the Whitecaps, because at that left back position, he's probably, I think he's not now obviously, but in 2-3 years time, I think he's going to be one of the best fullbacks in world football if he stays in that position, because he's that dangerous. It's just about asserting his defensive qualities as well as such obvious attacking ones. But I think he can be a real danger down that left hand side.
Do you think?
Go on, George.
Do you think Bayern would be happy with a draw from this game, realistically, just to keep that gap the same? Can they risk losing it? And then it's anyone's game in the end of the year, isn't it?
Yeah, they got a few more tricky fixtures after Dortmund, but I don't, aside from maybe Leverkusen, who are in great form at the moment, I don't see where else Bayern drop points. So I think this is a must-win for Dortmund.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. A draw isn't enough for Dortmund, as Sam says. There's only one real place where there's potential for Bayern to stumble. Obviously, there could be anything can happen, but if they draw, that keeps the 4-point gap, and that just seems insurmountable for the limited time they have left in the season. Because that requires like minimum 2 stumbles from Bayern, 2 points, like 2 lots of points dropped, and I just can't see that happening.
One player that went off for Dortmund, probably precautionary, I think he's all right for the game, is Hummels. Do you think, looking at the back 3 of Dortmund and the back 4 of Bayern, which one do you think has the best sort of balance to be able to contain the goal scorers that they have up front? Obviously, both teams, Bayern have 80 goals this season, which is a record, I believe, and Dortmund have 74. Which defense do you think is more equipped to handle the opposition's attack-minded system?
I would probably go with Bayern. I'm a little bit concerned. I'm okay with Hummels. I know he's a brilliant defender, but I'm a little bit concerned about Piszczek and also Kanji on either side of him, whether they can sort of deal with the threat of Lewandowski, obviously Kingsley Coman, and I guess Serge Gnabry will probably start, and obviously Alphonso Davies and Benjamin Pavard, who like to get down the wing frequently. So I'd probably go with Bayern if we're comparing the defences.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. You've got the Dortmund defenders, which aren't blessed with much speed. No disrespect meant to them, but you've got people like Kingsley Coman, who is just such a flair. He's an unbelievable player, and I just don't think they can catch up. Whereas down the other end, Dortmund do have pace going forward, but then you've got Kimmich, who will play a defensive role from midfield, and he's obviously a very quick player, and Alphonso Davies as well. So it's going to be a tight one for sure.
Kimmich is an interesting one because he sort of had the same sort of move progression that Philipp Lahm had, obviously from right back, now moving into central defensive midfield.
Yeah. That kind of in my mind about him, Bayern really, shaping him, and they've not really lost anyone like that. And they've in terms of personnel, they've really replaced a lot of players that have moved on. Like Ribéry and players they've lost. Whereas Dortmund sometimes haven't. The main key battle is that midfield too, as we've said. Do you think potentially somebody like Emir Can, who can protect that back 3, would be better than Delaney or Dahoud, and maybe make it more compact rather than just keep going with a free flowing system?
Potentially, but I think Dortmund proved on Saturday that those 2 players you mentioned are capable of doing a good job. I think Steve McManaman, with his Liverpool links, was quick to big Emre Can up. He barely even played for Liverpool. But no, it's not about that. Maybe include Can, but no, I think Delaney looks to have done a pretty good job.
It's how they also deal with Thomas Muller. I mean, we've mentioned Sancho with his 16 assists, but Muller's got 17. So I think he's the one that's been setting up Lewandowski most of the time. How do they stop him sort of in that, is it that round Deuter they like to call it, that round Deuter role, just floating about in front of the defense and picking the spots to find Lewandowski.
It's a proper football manager term, the round.
Yeah, around Deuter.
That's the only place I've heard that.
So on that logic, will Lucien Favre be standing on the sideline demanding more, Sam?
Yes.
Right. In terms of, just to wrap it up, obviously it's really hard to recall because on one side we've all got in us hearts that we want Dortmund probably to go on and win it to make it interesting in the last few game weeks.
Do we? Are we not all neutrals here? No, I know what you mean.
But
It's
in our heads, it's seemingly impossible to knock Bayern off of their perch at the minute. We asked you guys earlier today what your predictions were. We gave you the option of Dortmund, draw, or Bayern. The results are Dortmund to win was voted the highest with 60%, with a draw being 16% and a Bayern win 24%. Thank you for everyone that would voted. But now, boys,
that's quite convincing, that isn't it? Only 24 for Bayern.
I'm very surprised by that.
I think a lot of people voting for the Hearts there. But let's go around you guys. George, what do you think the score is going to be?
I think, as we've mentioned, I think Dortmund have to win to keep it alive. And I think based on what they've shown in the last couple of weeks, they will. I reckon 2-1 to Dortmund.
Ooh, Harry.
I want to say 3-2 Dortmund, but I'm going to say 3-2 to Bayern Munich because I just think the attack of Bayern Munich against the defence of Borussia Dortmund will be more potent than the other way around. But I still think there's going to be goals galore because the attacks of both teams are phenomenal. But I think they'll just sneak it because I think there'll be a few defensive relapses for Dortmund just because of the firepower everywhere that Bayern seem to have. So for me, it's a 3-2 win for Bayern Munich, as much as I want Dortmund to get something out of the game.
Sam?
There has to be goals, surely. I mean, sometimes with these sort of games, they fall flat, but surely with this one, I mean, there's so many plot lines that we've already mentioned with like Josh said, best home record against best away record, and these teams know how to score goals. So I think it'll be a Desmond 2-2.
And let's finish off with our guest. Thank you for coming on, Josh. What is your prediction?
Well, it's been my pleasure. And I'm going to say, based on hunger and home form, 2-1 Dortmund.
Oh, you see, as we said, in my heart, I really want Dortmund to nick it. But in my head, I think Dortmund will throw a lot of people forward in the last like 20 minutes, especially if Bayern are winning, because it's kind of nothing to lose at that point. And I think Bayern will win 3-1 by nicking something very late. Other games on that day, on the Tuesday night, obviously this is a 5:30 kickoff here in the UK. There's also Bayer Leverkusen, Wolfsburg, Frankfurt, Freiburg, and Werder Bremen and Mönchengladbach. Obviously, if Dortmund do drop points, the teams below them will be, itching to have that shot at trying to overtake them. However, knowing us, now we've done a special preview for it to get it out there. It will be 0-0. Everything we've just said, out the window.
Yeah, I'm so worried about that. That could easily happen. That's the thing.
We've bigged the two strikers up, and they both draw blanks.
Injured in the warm up.
Yeah.
Unless we get a surprise in fact to like it's 0-0 and Berkey goes up for a last minute corner and sticks one in, like Mark Crossley against Southampton.
Yeah, this is what it all rides on though. This game. This is how the Bundesliga is going to bring in more viewers full time. If they put on a real spectacle tomorrow evening, I should say.
Thank you for watching. We hope you made it this far and enjoyed our preview of the Klassiker. You can find us here on YouTube every Thursday at 6 p.m. with a podcast where hopefully we'll be reflecting on a very eventful game. You can find us on Twitter at @the_Fourmation. Also give us a like on Facebook and share the podcast with your friends. We're also on Spotify, Anchor, and other numerous podcasting outlets. I've been Devin Cash. You can find me at Devin Cash Media. George, where can they find you?
Find me at G Wilson 1000.
Harry?
Either Hedge End Southampton or H_Tizard is where you can find me.
And in the suburbs of Grimsby, where can they find you, Sam?
Suburbs. Not sure about that. At Sam_Allen567 on Twitter.
And we'd like to say thank you for Gooders for joining us. If you want any Bundesliga news or obviously next season Works Up Town news, you can follow Josh. Where can they find you?
At JG Journo on Twitter.
Brilliant. Thank you for watching. Thank you, fellas, for joining us at an earlier date. We will see you on Thursday for the next recording of the Fourmation podcast. But for now, thank you and goodbye.
Cheerio.
Bye-bye.